Hey guys, it's Christy from the Stamp Cycle here. Today I have a technique for you called Emboss Resist with Black Marker. I saw this over on Jennifer McGuire's YouTube channel and I love the idea. So I gave it a try and then decided to film it on a video for you guys. So we're going to be using the Crazy About You stamp set. We'll be using the flower and the leaf stamps. You can make very easy masks using the flower medallion punch that coordinates with this stamp set. So I've gone ahead and cut out a couple masks that we'll be using with our stamping today. So I have a piece of Whisper White cardstock here, and I'm using my Misty tool to do all of my stamping. We're using Watermelon Wonder, Bermuda Bay, and Cucumber Crush. The reason why I'm using the Misty is we are going to be doing a lot of stamping over already previously stamped images, if that makes sense. So the Misty tool just makes it really easy to get clean, crisp images, but then also be able to line your stamp back over things that you've already stamped and you could stamp again. I do not think I'm making any sense, but you'll see what I mean. So you can see here I stamped down the flower with Watermelon Wonder, and I did not get a very crisp image. So the great thing about the Misty is I just re-ink my stamp back up and close the door, and it stamps in the exact same place that I stamped before. So I'm using my Lawn Fawn stamp chamois to clean off my stamps in between colors. That thing is amazing. If you do not have one, I suggest you get over to Lawn Fawn and order one. It has just changed my life. It's awesome. So I just stamped it off there on the paper to make sure all of the ink is off. I've grabbed one of those masks. I just cut out a mask using just typing paper. Again, using that flower medallion punch. It fits exactly over the flower image that we've already stamped. So we will stamp the next flower using Bermuda Bay. And I'm overlapping that flower on the mask so that we have, so it looks like this Bermuda Bay flower is behind the Cucumber Crush flower that we've already stamped. So just push real hard. You see again, I didn't get a really crisp image on that first stamp, so I'm going to stamp it again and really apply pressure right there along the mask so that the ink will butt up all the way against that pink flower that we've already stamped. So I'm going to do this one more time to get a really nice, crisp Bermuda Bay image. If you don't have a Misty tool, it is worth the investment because of this reason alone, but it also helps in doing multiple cards at once. It just really, it does make your life a lot easier. So I'm grabbing that second mask and I'm putting it over the Bermuda Bay now, and we're going to stamp some leaves. We'll be stamping the leaves in the Cucumber Crush, so I'm just lining my stamp up where I want the leaves and grabbing my ink, and I'll ink that up and stamp it with the Misty again. The reason why I have those two masks, as you can see, I really don't want the leaf to be stamped over those flowers. I want it to look like it's coming out from underneath the flowers. So by masking those, that it gives me that appearance that the leaf is underneath the flowers. So I'll stamp another leaf up in the opposite corner. And now we're ready to do the technique. So to get the Emboss Resist, we're going to stamp over all of these images, the leaves and the flowers, using Versamark ink. And then we're going to heat set all of those images in clear embossing powder. So it might be a good idea to use your anti-static tool, embossing buddy, before you do this part. I forgot to use my embossing buddy. While embossing powder is pretty good about it not getting a bunch of stray powder, but I did have to grab my paintbrush and wipe away a few bits here and there that did get in places I didn't want it. So again, this is just clear embossing powder. I have it in one of those ginormous jars that I will never run out of embossing powder. So I'm going to funnel that back into the container, and we will heat set that powder. And after we do the first leaf, we'll move on to do the other leaves and then the flowers. Again, we want to stamp over all of the images with the Versamark and then heat set those with clear embossing powder. So this stamp is a little tricky. The flower has to be lined up perfectly in order for it to really match the image. So you have to, there's only one orientation of the stamp. It's not equal all the way around, so you do have to spin that stamp around till you get it to line up with your previously stamped image. And the Misty is fabulous in helping you do this. You line it up, pick it up with the Misty door, and it stamps perfectly over that previously stamped flower. And again, we're just using the same clear embossing powder to emboss all of the remaining images. Okay, so the power and magic of TV here. I have skipped through all of that and sped right up to the finished product here. So everything is embossed in the clear embossing powder. And I'm going to take this black marker. This is a Tombow dual brush marker, and I'm using the brush end. And I'm just going to color directly onto the cardstock and over my embossed images. You want to work in sections, and as you color over, you want to wipe away any of that ink that is sitting on top of those embossed images. By doing it in sections, it ensures that you get that ink off before it maybe sets into the stamped image. I don't really find that it does set in, but just to be on the safe side, just work in sections, and you just color. You just apply that black marker over all of the cardstock, and be sure that you also color over all of your embossed images to get in between any of the spaces that did not have the embossing powder. And as you can see, this gives you a really cool finished look that really pops those colors on that black background. So this is a really great way to get colored images onto a black cardstock if you don't have a lot of colored embossing powders. I don't have a lot of colored embossing powders, so if I want to get this look, I have to use this technique with the black marker. But look how cool that turns out. It really does give you a wow factor, and it's pretty easy to do. So let's go ahead and finish the card. So I'm going to take a piece of cucumber crush here. It's just a card base. Cut a full-size sheet in half. We're going to heat emboss a background. We're using that Timeless Textures, I think is the name of that stamp set. We're going to be using that swirly floral stamp there to stamp all over the card base here with Versamark, and we will also heat set this using clear embossing powder. So that way the background of the card matches our Technic piece, so everything has that clear embossed look to it. This is a pretty cool stamp set. It's got a lot of really great stamps that you can use for backgrounds like this, or to just add little hints of images here and there. This is the first time I've used it, but I really like it, so I plan on breaking that stamp set out more. So I'm almost done boring you here watching me stamp this background, but now that I've got everything stamped, I will coat this in the clear embossing powder, same embossing powder I used for the other, and then I'll heat set that. I realized that that piece was not going to fit into my coffee filter, so I just switched to a scrap piece of paper I had sitting around, and this works just as well. It's just as easy to funnel that powder back into the container. Alright, so I just heat set that with my heat tool. Again, probably would have been a good idea to use my anti-static tool. I didn't have a lot of stray embossing powder. Wow, embossing powder is pretty good about that, but again, you might want to just grab your anti-static tool before you do your background. So I'm going to layer that Technic piece on a piece of Whisper White. That way it really pops that black image off of the pink. So I just used my mono multi glue to glue that Technique piece onto the Whisper White. I'm just going to set a block on there to make sure it adheres and gets dry and stays together. And then I'm going to pop this up on a piece of craft foam. The reason why I'm not using dimensionals or foam adhesive is it can get crushed in the mail. So I really wanted to use a solid backing to this Technique piece so it didn't get crushed in the mail. So I just cut down a piece of fun foam to be slightly smaller than that Technique piece, and that gives it even dimension across the back. Just using that block again to make sure I get it nice and adhered. And I will use the same glue, this Tombow Multi, whatever it is, to glue this onto the front. I'm going to just use my grid paper to make sure I get this Technique piece in the center and as even as possible. I am eyeballing it here a little bit, but I think I got it pretty good there in the center. And that is it. Super easy. Gives you, there's another one that I created the other day, gives you a really awesome look. Well, thanks for stopping by.